Hi guys, bienvenidos a mi canal. I recently had to do an embroidery patch by hand for a client of mine, and I had to attach it onto the denim jacket that he provided me with. So I'm gonna be teaching you guys step by step on how to do a custom design hand embroidery patch and how to attach it onto an article of clothing. And no further ado, let's get straight to it. So the tools and materials you'll need are a pair of scissors, a needle that you're most comfortable hand sewing with, embroidery floss, heat and bond ultra hold iron-on adhesive, embroidery hoop, fabric, which mine is just a plain weaved cotton fabric, and an image that you want to embroider. The image I will be doing for this patch is a logo that my client made, and he asked me to make the embroidery patch 4 1/4 by 3 3/4. I purchased these DMC 6-strand embroidery flosses at Mikos for 62 cents. For the black, I got 7 bundles of number 310, but I only ended up using 4 of them, so that's a bad estimate from my part. For the white, I got 3 bundles of number, oh wait, it doesn't have a number, it just says blank. But I only ended up using 1 bundle. For the blue, I got 2 bundles of number 996, and for the yellow, I got 1 bundle of number 3820. Now, to trace the image onto the fabric, I taped my printed image onto the window. Then I taped the edges and corners of the fabric onto the window on top of the printed image. From the sunlight, I can see the image clearly, and I use a pencil to trace the image, and I used a ruler to get straight, precise lines. Now that you made a clear tracing of your image onto the fabric, you can take it off the window and place it onto an embroidery hoop. I got this embroidery hoop at Goodwill for 50 cents. You can find a lot of things at Goodwill. Probably one thing I haven't seen at Goodwill is underwear. But yeah, I could be wrong. Maybe they don't have it in my Goodwill. What you're going to do is loosen the screw until the inner hoop is out. Place the hoop under the fabric and make sure the traced image is centered. Then push the outer hoop into the outside edge of the inner hoop. Then tighten the screw and pull the edges of the fabric so the center of the fabric is evenly spread and tensioned. You want the hoops to be tightly together and the fabric extremely flat and smooth on the top. And for you to reference, this is how it looks from the back. The first thing we have to do is stitch the outline. So with the black embroidery thread, which has 6 strands, I will be separating it to 3 strands. And I do this so the stitches aren't so thick. The amount of strands to use is completely up to you and your design. Thread the needle by leaving about 5 inches on a loose end, and then make a knot on the longer loose end. And the way I make a knot is by wrapping the end of the thread around the needle and then pull it down through the thread until it makes a tight knot. Now, to stitch the outline, we're going to do a stitch called back stitch. First, poke the needle from the back to the front of the point you want to start and pull the thread all the way through until it reaches the knot. Then, about 3/4 away, pull the needle downwards towards the back and pull the thread all the way through. Then 3/4 away, which is the same distance away from the first stitch, you push the needle from the back to the front and pull all the way through. Next, you will push the needle from the front to the back on the exact same hole that the previous stitch was made. Then repeat this process all throughout your pencil outline. When I was done using a thread, the way I secured the thread to the back is by making a loop through a thread from a stitch and then pulling the needle through until it's tightly secured. After making the same knots at least 2 times, I weave the needle through the established stitches until I feel it's secured, and then I cut the ends and kind of pat them in towards the stitches so it kind of stays in place. And this is what we get. Now, to fill in the black part before topping it with the final stitches, I first made horizontal satin stitches with the same 3-strand black thread, which I stitched in smaller parts, but I later learned that it would have been best if I just did horizontal satin stitches all the way across without making small breaks, because it left white parts exposed, which I later had to cover it with more stitches. So learn from my mistakes. After filling the black portions with horizontal satin stitches, I had to do the vertical satin stitches. So this time, instead of using 3-strand, I had to make it to 1-strand because it will give a more precise and cleaner look to the satin stitch. And also, it's supposedly the correct way to do a satin stitch. And to do a satin stitch, you poke the needle from the back to the front on the point you want to commence. Then pull the thread all the way through until it reaches the knot. Then across that point, push the needle downwards to the back and pull the thread all the way through. From the back, right next to the first stitch hole, push the needle and thread through to the front. Then from the front to the back, straight across, pull the needle and thread through. And repeat these same steps. After doing the big portion, I did the same satin stitch on the inner diamond shape, the 4 horizontal wing lines, and the inner halo. When doing these satin stitches, you want to make sure that the stitches are right next to each other and vertically straightened and aligned. It took me about 5 complete days to just complete the black background because it's a single strand satin stitch. Now, for the blue part, I used 3 strands of thread to backstitch the outline of the diamond shape. After that, I used a single strand of thread to do the vertical satin stitch. Take in mind that one wonky stitch can completely change the accuracy of the overall shape, so make sure to straighten and align all your stitches properly. For the yellow halo, I did the same steps as I did with the black part. With 3 strands of yellow thread, I outlined the halo by backstitching. And with the same 3 strands, I filled the halo with horizontal satin stitches. Then, with a single strand of yellow thread, I did straight vertical satin stitches to cover the horizontal stitches. For the white, with 1 strand of white thread, I outlined the wings by backstitching, and I decided that the wings would look best with horizontal satin stitches, so I filled the wings with aligned horizontal satin stitches. And this is how it turned out. And if you were wondering how the back looks, this is how the back looks. Now we have to place iron-on adhesive on the back of the embroidery. So the first thing I did is mark lines 1/8 away from the edges. Then take the fabric off the embroidery hoop and place it flat on the ironing board. Then place the iron-on adhesive paper on top of the patch and cut it a bit bigger than the size of the embroidery patch. Flip the wrong side of the embroidery up and pat the threads inwards and cut any excess thread ends. You'll notice that the iron-on adhesive has one side with paper and the other side is shiny and has a net-like texture. You will place the shiny textured side on top of the wrong side of the embroidery, and your iron should be on no steam and in between linen and cotton. Now, press and hold the iron for about 8 seconds on each section until the entire piece is bonded. After letting it cool off, you can take off the paper backing, and it should somewhat look like this. Then, cut on the lines you marked earlier and you're going to place the patch on wherever you want it on the garment. My client asked for this patch to be on the sleeve, so I centered the patch on the sleeve and pinned it. I also marked corner point with pencil just in case it shifts. Before ironing the patch, make sure to take off the pins. You don't want them to be attached to the garment. And I placed a piece of fabric on top of the patch while I press and hold the iron on the patch for 8 seconds on each section until it's bonded. That was definitely a run-on sentence. Oh my gosh. But you get the point. It should look like this. At first, I had in mind that I was going to attach the patch by using the closed zigzag stitch on the sewing machine, but it came out horrendous. You see, this is how it looks with the machine, and this is how it looks when I do it by hand. Basically, I did the satin stitch all around the border, and I made the width about 1/4 of an inch. I did this over and over until the white was completely covered. And I used regular black thread from a spool because it would have taken me much longer to unravel the threads from the 6-strand embroidery floss. And this is how I did the corners. I stitched the whole bottom and top border all the way, while the left and right border I left 1/4 of a square on the corners. At the back, I looped and tied 2 times and then cut the excess thread. And this is how it looks at the back. So now you know how to make a hand embroidered patch. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something new. The next videos that I will be working on are a cell phone bag, someone requested that, another custom painted shoes, and a clothing haul. So make sure to subscribe and turn on all your post notifications on. Comment down below if you have any questions. I am more than happy to help. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for showing your love and support. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!